just herbs. So I actually took a course in graduate school, and it was called Botanical Medicines. Just because there's so many different things out there, spices, and other different types of plants that have medicinal properties. So we're going to talk about a few of those. First of all, just a reminder: no magic bullets. Okay, uh, this is not about taking an herb in the place of a drug. Or these are plants. Plants do not work in the same way that drugs do. So what they are essentially is part of a healthy diet. That's kind of how I've come to view herbal medicine at this point. Is just that herbs are essential. An essential part of a healthy diet. And again, not just herbs, but the variety of plants that we're going to take a look at. Some of the spices are extremely beneficial, and it's just that these things are part of a healthy diet overall. Okay. That being said, there are some things that you can do to help overcome some symptoms of disease. Um, Again, in part with the healthy diet. So first of all, herbs and plants, they've always been used for their healing properties. About 80% of the world's population still uses plants as part of their primary health care. So about 80% of the world's population is still relying on some type of botanical medicines. They're pretty popular in Europe. Still parts of the world where they have to rely on traditional medicines. Um, even when modern medicine is offered, a lot of times the people will still use a blend of traditional and modern medicine, conventional medicines. So it's more of an integrative system than we have. So feel free to read through all these. About 25% of our prescription drugs come from plants. It actually might be more than that. It might be closer to 50%. Um, so again, these aren't drugs. These are herbs. They're plants. So they don't exactly have the strength uh, that they don't have the strength that you would expect from a drug. You have a terrible migraine. Sometimes taking an herb or a vitamin might help, but they're not going to work the same way that some of these drugs do. Okay, because you have to digest them first of all. You have to eat these herbs, consume these herbs. They have to get into the bloodstream. So they're really best as part of an ongoing healthy diet. Um, we're not going to go through all these. These are just the different types of pharmaceuticals, the different classifications of pharmaceuticals. Feel free to read through these. The nurses, those in the nursing program, I'm sure recognize a lot of these. Uh, Essentially, there are botanicals that work that fall into every one of these. Oops, sorry about that. Every one of these categories. Um, there's expectorants, laxatives, tonics. Um, I apologize. I'm sorry about that. Anti-inflammatory herbs or botanicals, antimicrobial herbs, astringent herbs. So there's a lot of really cool things out there that you can check out. All right. So, um, whole herbs. That's what I recommend. Mix it in with your salad as much as possible. And whole herbs. The culinary herbs, parsley, basil. They all have a lot of really great health properties. So if you can eat them, drink them in teas. That's usually fine. Teas don't tend to be as strong as some of the whole herb, or what I would highly recommend is the tinctures. We'll take a look at what the tinctures are. I have some pictures that we can check out. So acai berries, we're going to start with these. And we're going to go alphabetical. I have about 35 that I want to get through. So we're going to try and go through these pretty quickly. Uh, Acai berries, very high in antioxidants. I think it's one of the highest foods as far as antioxidant capacity is concerned. Um, they're not. They don't really sell these right around the corner usually. At least from me, you can probably find them in a health food store or something. You're probably going to pay a lot of money for them. And there's other things that are even higher in antioxidants that are actually much cheaper. But there do seem to be some legitimate benefits to it. There's these one of the things. This is one of the things that actually has been studied, and there definitely does seem to be some health benefits associated with it. Aloe vera, I'm sure you've all seen these. Maybe some of you have them in your house. They're great to have around. Just leave them out in the sun in the morning and bring it in the house for the rest of the day, and break a little piece off whenever you need a little cream. It's good for sunburns, things like that. Pretty again, a great one just to kind of keep around the house. Uh, Amla, the Indian gooseberry. Uh, this is one of my favorites. This is something that I recently started to put into my diet, and I actually mix a little bit into my son's food when I can. It comes in a lot of different forms. The middle part there looks like a small tomatilla almost. It's a little berry. What I use is the amla powder. which is the picture on your right. And it's like half a teaspoon or a quarter teaspoon. That's all you really need. If you look at the antioxidant content there, 301 millimoles per 100 grams compared to 1.85 millimoles per 100 grams for blueberries. So everybody talks about how wonderful blueberries are for antioxidant capacity, and they are. Don't get me wrong, but uh, almond is 150 times higher. So, or is that right? Whatever it is, yeah, almost 150 times higher. So, um, it's real easy. You go to any Indian grocer and ask them for amla, and they'll show you several different forms of it that they have. So again, a little bit of amla powder, I mix it in with my smoothie in the morning, and it really works great. And I do the same thing for my son. Um, I went into an Indian grocer recently, and the guy insisted that I take some of this stuff home. I don't even know how to pronounce this, but it looks like, look at that picture on the right. If you've ever done any type of plumbing, I used to do plumbing years ago. It kind of reminds me of pipe dope. We used to call it pipe dope. It's very thick coming out of the jar, and it's very black, very dark black. It's amla. It's Indian gooseberry, dried Indian gooseberry, mixed with like 100 or 200 different herbs. It's a 2,000-year-old recipe from Ayurvedic medicine. And the guy who sold it to me was insisting. He's like, just put some of this on your toast in the morning. Doesn't matter if you drink or smoke, whatever. You'll live to be 100 years old. So I'm sure he was, kind of selling me a line. But still, I looked it up, and this stuff is really potent. Again, I put a small amount on my toast. It actually has a pretty pleasant flavor, believe it or not. Kind of like Indian spices maybe, and maybe clove, something like that. So kind of cool. Check it out. And there's a link there. I don't know if that link works, but if you want to learn more about that, check it out. Maybe somebody can figure out how to pronounce that word. All right. Basil. Basil is a nutritional powerhouse. One of my favorites. I get this directly from the farm, organic. I make pesto out of it, jars of pesto, and I'll freeze it and just pull it out whenever I want some. And it's wonderful. You can just throw it right in your salad too. That's a tincture, that picture in the middle. So they've been using tinctures of basil for hundreds of years for a variety of conditions. And again, it's just the I don't know if anybody knows exactly what it is. It's probably not just one chemical in there. It's the synergistic effect that you get from all the different nutrients kind of working together, and then you synthesize that into a small tincture. So it's just biomedicine essentially. Um, Cayenne. Those of us that like hot foods are getting a lot of health benefits from cayenne peppers, and not just cayenne, but hot peppers in general. Um, there's something called capsaicin. It's on the market. You've probably seen it. It's like a hand lotion. You rub it on your hand for if you have arthritis in your hand. I think it's pretty effective. I've never had to use it myself, but it's supposed to be pretty effective. But you don't want to obviously put it on on your direct skin. But generally, cayenne is very good for respiratory health. You eat hot food, your nose starts running, it kind of clears everything out. So it's a great a stimulant, natural stimulant. Chamomile, or as my wife says, chamomile. We're actually growing this at the farm this year. I'm doing a medicinal garden at the farm. So great in teas, kind of helps you relax. Again, it's not a Valium. It's not going to knock you out, but it kind of can help you take the edge off a little bit at the end of the day. Kind of help put you to sleep. Any type of like sleepy time herbal medicine usually has chamomile in there and a couple other things. I'd be careful about giving stuff to children. So if you want to try and give it to children, small amounts, but and I would be, also be very careful with pregnancy. Check with your doctor first. Cranberry, again, a lot of the women may have heard this or used this before. Again, if you have a UTI, get it treated. But if you're prone to UTIs, you might want to work cranberry into your regular diet. It should probably help bring them down a little bit. Try and avoid anything that's too heavily processed. I would try and get, the cranberry tea is probably the best way to go, or one of the best ways to go. We're real cranberries, obviously, but some of those cranberry juices have a lot of sugar in them, so just be careful. Echinacea. So if you start to get a cold, you first feel that first sneeze comes on, and you start to feel like I'm starting to get a cold, start taking some echinacea. Not a lot. Just read the instructions and just buy the tincture. You can find it in a lot of health food stores. if you do that, and there's a couple other things that we'll take a look at, gargle with a little bit of salt water, and you can usually bypass that cold. We'll talk about a few more things about colds, but echinacea is great. Uh, it can really, it's one of the ones again that's been backed pretty much, a lot of evidence to back it up. It's also a pretty flower, isn't it? It's kind of cool looking. Elderberry, this is one of my favorites. So I give this to my son every day during the winter. Um, the one on the left, Sambu Guard for kids. Now that does have a little bit of sugar in it. It's a natural sugar. It's like pear juice or something. So you can get other ones that don't have as many sugars in them. They don't taste as good, so the kids might not eat them as quickly or drink it as quickly. But my son will take it right down. It's got kind of a nice taste to it. Those are elderberries right in the middle, obviously in that picture, that middle picture. We actually have an elder. I don't know if it's an elder tree or an elder bush on the farm, and they grow natural elderberries. I went to harvest them, but the farmers took them because they were making beer out of them. So it's kind of cool. They grow hops and they make beer, and they used some elderberry and some other stuff. So it's good for you, right? It's beer, but it's got elderberry in it. So I give him a dose of this when he every day, my son, and if he starts to get something, I'll give him a little echinacea, and I'll double or triple the dosage of the elderberry. And I've been pretty successful with it. He does occasionally get colds, but this has been very helpful. Ephedra, the only herb to ever be banned by the FDA. About a decade ago, maybe, several athletes died who were using it as a performance enhancer. I think it was a baseball player, maybe a pitcher that died. Um, so if you can see that picture on the right, it kind of got cut off, but that big bottle, it says Orange Speed. Like they sell a lot of junk in health food stores. I'm sure that there's some good stuff I forget the name of the things. Um, Not CVS, but some of the other GNC. I'm sure there's some good things in GNC, but I would say a lot of this stuff is probably junk, and just be careful. So a lot of that stuff is when it's used appropriately, it's actually very effective. It's very good for allergies, actually. Um, Evening primrose oil, again, another good one for women. Again, if you're going to take something like this, do some more research besides what you're seeing here. But it's a great source of essential fatty acids, a great plant source of essential fatty acids. So you might want to check this one out as well. Feverfew, great for preventing migraines. Just don't take it if you're pregnant. Feverfew, vitamin B2, I think. Vitamin B2, riboflavin, is also pretty good or very good at preventing migraines. So if you're prone to migraines and you're not pregnant, take a little feverfew and maybe take a B2 supplement and or a full multivitamin, and you might have some luck. Flax, Dr. Andrew Weil recommends that if you make one change to your diet, it should be the inclusion of flax. Best way to get this is the optimal way to get this is to get the seeds, which are very tiny, pretty small, and they're very hard, and you have to put them in a pepper mill or something like that to grind them up. Or you can buy ground flaxseed. Ground flaxseed, I'm assuming that if it's ground, it's probably lost a little bit of the nutrients rather than just grounding it on your own, but it's so much more convenient. So I usually get the ground stuff, the pre-ground stuff. It's wonderful. Definitely check out flax. Garlic. Eat it whole, not whole cloves of it, but excuse me, just chop it up, throw it in your salsa, in your tomato sauce. That's the best way to go. Garlic is probably the strongest anti-cancer food that we have. The latest research says that garlic is number one. Now something else might come up, and things change, every 6 months or every year, but whether or not it's the strongest, it's very, very strong. So try and get garlic into your diet every day. Again, a clove in your salsa, tomato sauce, marinara sauce. Figure out a way to do it. Chop it up. Don't put it through the garlic press. I mean, that's okay, but you're missing out on a lot of the fiber. So, and the pills are probably not as effective. Ginger, another great one. Again, just buy the ginger root, slice it up a little bit, kind of put it over a cheese grater. That's what I like to do. Put it in soup, put it in tea, whatever you like. They soak like washcloths in ginger tea and then apply it to certain parts of the body that have pain. This is in Chinese medicine, and it seems to be extremely helpful. It's like a hot press, or a hot um, a heating pad essentially, but it's got ginger in it instead. And the ginger apparently has like heating properties according to Chinese medicine. So what it's used for primarily is motion sickness, nausea, things like that. So just buy some ginger candy if you're prone to motion sickness, if you get sick in the car, and see if it works. I bet it probably will. Ginkgo biloba, or ginkgo. I think it's the ginkgo tree, and sometimes they call it ginkgo biloba. Very good for memory. Um, Again, it's not going to overcome, a poor diet and, abusive drugs and some of the other things that are linked to early dementia. But certainly, as part of a healthy diet, it'd be a good idea to take a little ginkgo just as a preventative measure. As far as I know, there's nothing that can cure Alzheimer's disease. There's some things that can slow down the progression. Um, that's my understanding. And there's certainly things that you can do to prevent it. Which again, it's like everything else, you just live healthy. But ginkgo does seem to have some appropriate or some effective treatment for Alzheimer's patients. So that's good news. Ginseng, the most widely used medicinal herb, several different species. We grow it here in the U.S. in, I think, Wisconsin. It's kind of funny. The Chinese pay a lot of money to have U.S. ginseng imported over there. For some reason, U.S. ginseng is very highly prized. And here we spend a lot of money importing Chinese ginseng because it's exotic and, it's supposed to be, Chinese ginseng. It's kind of the placebo effect. So I would say try it out. I don't currently take ginseng. I have had it in the past. I don't think that I've noticed anything, but people claim that that it definitely gives them more energy. It gives them an energy boost. It might help out if you start to have a cold, you take some ginseng as well. But again, I would try and get natural forms as much as possible. Goji berries, again, if you can find them, they're probably the healthiest dried food. When they're sold as goji berries, they're a little expensive. So there's something called lycium berries, and it's the exact same thing. Go to an Asian market and you can probably find them. And it's the same exact thing. It's the goji berries, but it's half the price, most likely, or at least it's cheaper. And like any fruit, I mean, again, it's not a drug. It's not like some magic bullet, but when you add it to your diet, it can improve overall energy levels. They have tested this. They tested it with something that tasted similar, but it was just like a fruit juice. And the people on the goji juice actually did much better as far as mental acuity, calmness, academic performance, athletic performance. So it does definitely seem to be effective. Kava, if you're going to mess with this or if you're going to experiment with this, just be careful. Apparently in Hawaii, there's kava bars. One of my former students was telling me this, and they just kind of sit around the bars almost like they would up here at a regular bar drinking alcohol, and they just sit around drinking kava all day. So I don't think it gets you intoxicated the way that alcohol does or cannabis, but I think it just kind of relaxes you very deeply. I'm sure the stuff that they're using is much stronger than the stuff that they sell here. The stuff that they sell here is essentially kind of calms you down and is relaxing. Be careful. There's a lot of teenagers that were mixing kava and cannabis and alcohol. So just don't do anything silly. Just be careful, okay? But might have some applications for anxiety. Lavender, again, lavender oil. We'll talk more about aromatherapy, but this is great. A little lavender oil, if you're prone to anxiety, just put a little dab of it, on your collar, on your shirt collar, and you just kind of that smell just kind of follows you around all day. And it does seem to help for things like anxiety, depression. It just kind of lightens you up a little bit. Again, it's not a drug. You don't just put lavender on, but you exercise. I'm talking about for treatment of depression. You eat right, you exercise, you use a little lavender. It just kind of can help the overall formula for treating a disease. Just young boys exposed to lavender oil actually started to develop breasts. So that's what I don't know how to pronounce that, gynecomastia, whatever it is. But that's breast enlargement in young boys. So just be careful with some of these. Milk thistle, if you like to drink, milk thistle is a good idea. Can help your liver. Uh, Best thing to do is to stop drinking and take milk thistle. That's when it's most effective. Um, but I put in here most effective when the toxin exposure is stopped. Not just alcohol, anything that's going to damage your liver. But if you're going to drink alcohol, it's probably a good idea to take some milk thistle. Mushrooms, um, any type of mushroom. Well, not any type, but most types of mushrooms. Uh, Dr. Weil recommends Asian mushrooms. So shiitake mushrooms. There's something called a reishi mushroom. But even the white button mushrooms are great. They're very powerful. Um, Very strong vitamin D levels, anti-inflammatory. They found that 5 white button mushrooms a day seems to suppress breast cancer growth. So try and work. Dr. Greger now refers to it as a plant and fungus-based diet. Sounds kind of gross, but if you try and develop a taste for mushrooms, if you can, I would always recommend buying organic and always consume cooked. They have a natural carcinogen in them, so you should probably cook, or you definitely want to cook them for at least, I would say, 20 minutes. Peppermint, again, any type of mint grows great. It's great for, it's just a great natural breath refresher, and it seems to be good for IBS as a adjunctive treatment for IBS. Saffron, most expensive herb or spice in the world. They actually did another one. They tested this. They seems to be very good for PMS, depression. It worked as well as Prozac in the treatment of depression. So there's definitely some placebo effect going on when you're talking about taking pills to treat depression, but it seems to be as effective as the antidepressants. It is pretty pricey though, unfortunately. It's probably, I don't know if I'm sure it's cheaper than the antidepressants, but I think they might be fairly close. Saw palmetto, this is one that is turning out that it probably doesn't work. So just be careful. It's used for prostate treatment, to treat prostate problems. So my advice is a plant-based diet. We saw that plant-based diet can be used to treat prostate cancer, but other prostate problems as well. And if you're going to use this in combination with a plant-based diet, then there might be some application. The research that I've read most recently, that any benefit is really just a placebo effect. So there's no benefit above and beyond the placebo effect. So just be careful. St. John's wort, it's good for mild to depression, mild to moderate depression. This is not useful for major depression. All right, but there really aren't too many things that are useful for major depression. This is for mild to moderate depression. Mild to moderate depression, it's very effective. There was a big study done by the NIH maybe a decade ago looking at St. John's wort for major depression, and they found that it doesn't work. Well, of course it doesn't work. That's like treating cancer with an aspirin. Nobody would think to use St. John's wort for major depression. But it can be effective for mild depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, things like that. So again, do your research before you try any of these. Stevia, for those of us again that have a little bit of a sweet tooth, I wouldn't say it's 100%. I don't want to say it's 100% safe, but it seems to be pretty safe if used moderately. I wouldn't go overboard with it. The World Health Organization considers under 4 milligrams per kilogram of body weight to be safe. So of course the World Health Organization has to use the metric system. But you can do the conversion for there. I should have done the conversion into pounds. So, but try and do that conversion if you use stevia, just to make sure. I think it's a pretty decent dose. You just don't want to go overboard with it. Avoid Truvia. It's stevia with chemicals mixed in with it. And there's a natural sweetener. It's called Z-Sweet. And to my understanding, that is the only one that there's no evidence that it does anything unfortunate. Most of the artificial sweeteners have some bad news associated with them. So just be careful in using those. But check out Z-Sweet. It's not bad. Tea. Green tea, black tea. I myself am a coffee drinker. which has its own benefits. But tea, I do try and drink tea. I should drink more of it. Seems to prevent against cancer. Again, it's not going to be it's not going to overcome the problems from an unhealthy lifestyle, but when worked into a plant-based diet, can be very effective for a lot of things. What I saw was a combination of green and black tea seems to work the best. So for years, my mother has been making homemade iced tea with green and black tea, and she sweetens it with an orange, and that's just kind of how we grew up with that, and that's perfect. That's what you if you need a beverage, that's really all you need. Turmeric. India has the lowest rate of Alzheimer's disease in the world, and it's probably because of the food. And turmeric is a big part of that. So turmeric is what is in yellow mustard. It gives yellow mustard its color, and it's used extensively in Indian cooking. So they're experimenting a lot now with Alzheimer's disease, and for some reason I don't know why, but when you add black pepper to turmeric, I'm sorry, that says turmeric. It should say turmeric. Yeah, for some reason it boosts availability by like 2,000%, and I don't know why. I just heard that from I think a Michael Greger tape. So you might want to check that out. Valerian. Don't give it to kids, but again, it's a great sleep aid. It's what is the extract, I guess, or yeah, I guess the extract is used to make Valium. So it's not a Valium. It's not going to knock you out like Valium does, but it just kind of calms you down a little bit. Again, a lot of sleep time herbal teas will have usually a mixture of valerian and chamomile in them. So it seems to be pretty effective at anxiety. Again, don't give it to kids. Don't drive on it if you've never taken it and you don't know how you're going to act on it. So, but my experience is it just kind of mellows me out a little bit. And there's some references. Okay, so that's it. Hopefully this wasn't too long. Hopefully you got something out of this. Thanks.